We're here in this session to talk about the OTbase PowerBI custom connector. First of all, how many people in here are familiar with OTbase? I know you guys are, okay. Well, I'll just do a 2-minute quick hit on that. OTbase is our flagship asset inventory product, allows users to, using Active Discovery, create a nice map of their asset inventory, networks, OT systems, locations, things of that nature, and do all of the management associated with that. OTbase provides a lot of contextualized metadata on all of these products, all of these devices, computers, etc. PowerBI is something we began to offer a couple of years ago, which is a custom connector that I built, to enable you to get your data out of OTbase and into PowerBI. This is PowerBI Desktop. We also have a connector for the PowerBI Fabric service, which allows you to publish these dashboards up to the PowerBI online and then share that with people in your organization. So anyway, just to give you a quick idea how this functions, if you've ever used a PowerBI custom connector, the first thing you do is you come over here and you go to your Get Data and type in OTbase. And it's not there because it's not on this computer. But you would do that, click on OTbase, and it brings you up an option that allows you to select which tables you want to bring in. By default, we kind of allow you to bring in everything. If it's in the OTbase API, you can bring it into PowerBI. The first screen that you would normally see allows you to select which of those tables you do or do not want to load, which obviously will change the load time. Once that data is in here, for anybody who's familiar with PowerBI, I assume that most of you guys, great. So once it's in here, you have your data over here. These are all the tables that I have selected to bring in for this particular demo. We have our compliance, connections, devices, hardware, monitors, software tags, and vulnerabilities. And what's great about PowerBI is that all of that is automatically built into this relationship model. When you bring it in, the model is created, the relationships are created. A couple small tweaks you have to do because PowerBI lacks a couple of pieces of functionality to do this a little more intuitively, but few little hiccups aside, your relationships are created, so all of this is now linked. So when we go to do things like filter by location or click on any of these individual components, you're going to see everything on your screen adjust accordingly and slice accordingly. So what we have here is a comprehensive dashboard we built a little while ago that shows first just a high-level overview of the things that are important to us in regards to our OT asset inventory. And that's we have our asset count by criticality, which in the case of OTbase is have we assigned some criticality value to a given asset? Meaning, is it critical to engineering, continuity, safety, etc. We have our compliance count, that is user-defined, customer-defined compliance policies that you can do inside OTbase that allows you to say, we don't want anybody to install Adobe Flash on any computer. This will show you how many are compliant or non-compliant with all of those custom policies. Then we have just some donut charts because C-Suite loves donut charts from what I understand. So we got donut charts in here. Top 10 device types in my OT asset inventory. How many vulnerabilities do we have in here? Here's our top vendor distribution and vulnerability by severity. We also have a location filter over here and a category filter that will drill all of this down to that specific location or vendor, or category rather. So that's our overview. And then we put together some additional dashboards, software, compliance, vulnerability, that is essentially what you see on the overview, but scoped more specifically to the dimensions of metadata important for that specific category. So here we see a software dashboard. This tells us what our top 5 OS versions are, top apps installed, meaning by count obviously, what what locations have the most software installed, in this case Charlotte, 8,400 installations. And then you can scope this down to Microsoft Policy Platform. Let's see where all of that is. And all of this is to say, if I'm responsible for managing this software or assessing my risk, I might want to look at this and say, okay, well, I know Windows 7 is no longer supported, so where do I have those installations? This provides somebody who may be reporting to their leaders about the OT asset inventory, or it may be given to somebody through the Fabric service who is that person that's being reported to. We have a couple customers who build these dashboards, and then they publish this up to the online service, and they have access, certain members of their organization have access who need to see this data, but don't know how to use OTbase, are not going to use OTbase. They just want to see the charts and the data and make decisions about that. So you can publish this up there and give somebody access and have this update every night based on real OT-based data. Any questions before I just go on too long of a rant here about all these dashboards? Any questions about how it works or what we're seeing here or anything like that? No?
So I'm not familiar with OTbase, the interface of that. I'll probably talk to you about that after this, but this data is in that system as well, just laid out differently?
Yes, correct.
More for executive summaries, kind of drilling down.
Yeah, this is for whatever you want it for. As a business analyst, or if you're providing that information to an executive or something who may want to see this, you can do it in here. OTbase is similar data, more data, way more data. What's in the dashboard is what I have decided to go into these tables. But if you look at, for example, we're on the software dashboard right now. So what if we select that software table and then go look at the actual underlying data? We'll click on it. You can see this is actually all of the fields available in here, which is a lot more. And that's the case with all of these tables. So essentially, OTbase has an API, and the custom connector works by communicating with that API and extracting all that data in real time, either as part of a scheduled refresh or manually. The scheduled refresh, just to clarify though, that only is possible if you're using the online Power BI service. That's not a function of Power BI Desktop. If you're using online, you can refresh it regularly. So yeah, all these dashboards just give us a more visual representation, a more customized user experience than maybe you could get in OTbase, because Power BI is a very powerful tool, as the name implies, for providing intelligence layer on top of your data. So what we do is we give you the data and let you do whatever you want with it. In this case, we build these Power BI dashboards. On this one, we're looking at vulnerabilities. Maybe we want to see where our most vulnerable areas of our OT deployment is. We can also take a look at all of these CVEs in here. They're backlinked back to OTbase, which I don't think I'm logged in. But if we were to do that, we come back here. And now we see this is actually OTbase we're looking at now. We can see an overview of this vulnerability, what it impacts, what of the affected products, are there any listed or known mitigation strategies, where the most affected devices for that particular vulnerability are, et cetera, right? So yeah, that's our comprehensive dashboard here. Kind of gives you a snapshot of everything from devices to software to vulnerabilities. Here's a good one that we talked about, compliance earlier, right? You might have custom compliance policies defined in OTbase. This allows you to see the count of those policies. Where are we non-compliant? Where's the area I need to focus? Because anybody in the OT or IT security space knows it's an ongoing battle, right? You're always remediating. That's your whole life, is remediating. You can't remediate everything. It's not possible. So what we're trying to build with this Power BI dashboard and with OTbase Insight, which is our new AI intelligence layer, similar to Power BI, but a more natural language type interface, is providing another way to look at that data and draw insights on it without having to comb through pages and pages of tables and things like that, right? So this is one way you can do that. We can see here we have 326 devices that have applicable policies, and we have 187 of those are non-compliant with one or more policies. One of those policies we have defined is outdated OS. You shouldn't run Windows XP on a device. Well, we have 144 of those compliant, 172 non-compliant. So great, maybe I want to see that list of those 172. I click that, our slicer updates, and now we can see the actual list of devices, mostly virtual machines is what it looks like to me, and desktops running outdated OS, violating that policy. Any questions about compliance? I hope that means I'm covering it that well.
So I could see discovery nodes, I could see up, down here and stuff like that too.
Discovery nodes I haven't put in the Power BI dashboard, but because discovery node is a dimension of the API that you can have access to, that could be put in here.
Yeah.
If it's available via the API, it's available in Power BI. It's just a matter of, now that with a qualification, there are some things that may be available via the API, maybe a specific endpoint that contains data that we haven't built the connector to leverage currently. But that would be limited to mostly some very new functionality in OTbase. But for the most part, if you can see it via the API, you can pull it into Power BI. And the connector will parse it correctly and format it the way you need. And then you can build whatever dashboard you want around that. So then if we go over here, we're looking at software dashboard. And again, just these are what I think are the important dimensions of a given software application deployment. We have a table here. We show our vendor, the application, how many installs that has, when it was most recently run. And that's a good, obviously, a good data point to have, because I can filter that and say, well, you know, if this program hasn't been run in 702 days, it probably doesn't need to be there. We probably need to get rid of that. That's probably at this point an unsupported, unpatched, outdated, whatever the case is. It's not being used, so let's clean that up, right? That could be a whole remediation task, is just looking at what hasn't been run in over N days. Let's focus on cleaning those off of all of those systems. And obviously there are a number of ways to get that data through other systems and similar reporting tools. But with your OTbase data, this is kind of your one-stop shop. You have it in OTbase Asset Inventory. You have it in Power BI if you're using the connector. And you can easily find and create an action plan to remediate these potential vulnerabilities that you're seeing in your OT asset landscape.
I mean, this looks good. I'm just kind of curious, who's the ultimate user of something like that? Because you're a CISO, you got your own platform. If you're a SOCster, you got some SIM environment or XDR or whatever. If you're on-prem, you have OTbase. Is there somebody in the middle that is missing this information?
So I don't personally know all of the customers, the personas that are using this. Some guys in the back of the room might. What I do know is we have at least a couple who, they're the asset inventory owners. They're responsible for managing that landscape and reporting that up to someone. So they use this to create comprehensive dashboards, way more comprehensive than what you see here.
Passing reports, something like that's a little too static. They'll use this because it's within their company.
Right. Yeah, and if you're using the Power BI online service, this is scheduled refresh. So every morning that Power BI dashboard online is refreshed, your CISO or whoever has all the time access to that data.
And you could potentially even include non-OT-based data in here and correlate it.
In this dashboard, yeah, you can put whatever you want here. I can add a spreadsheet to this and tie that in. You know, especially if I have something with a key linking to these other tables somehow. You could link that in and create your own dashboards that way as well.
Right.
Yep.
So let me give you a typical scenario. The CISO sees all this information for the IT stuff, but they don't have these exact type of information for OT devices because they are not covered by the IT reporting platforms. And this way you can integrate both.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned Power BI being already in their chain of their supply chain of applications. Exactly. You're already using Power BI for dozens of other things.
Yeah, as long
Now
as
you got
there's an
another
API,
one.
I mean, you can tie it into just about anything.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious what
Yeah.
it specifically does.
Yeah, the connector portion of this is the value there is that it pulls the data from OTbase and does all of the necessary parsing and formatting to get it in a data that looks similar to what it looks like in OTbase. But any other, yeah, you could just go up here and get data, grab an Excel spreadsheet, grab some other API data source. If it has a connector, it gets tricky trying to grab data sources if you don't have a custom connector because there's a lot of failure points without the proper code underlying that API call. Yeah, so this is our, and then we have another dashboard I'll just look at really quickly here. It's similar, but we put a couple of different tables on here. This one has firmware instead. So maybe I want to look at all the devices I have out there that have outdated firmware. What's the latest version for that? And although that's not in here, we do have new functionality in OTbase that shows what the latest firmware for a given device is. And with that, you could now come in and adjust this dashboard to say, okay, we have X, Y, and Z device running firmware ABC, but that's an out-of-date firmware. So there's another point of potential vulnerability, either in security risk or obsolescence or failure risk. We want to get that updated quickly. Any other questions?
So when you're running the API calls across the DMZ, what do you guys propose for data extraction? A proxy, or how do you make sure that you have, because you're moving some sensitive data?
In my experience, the customers have run this from a device, the Power BI dashboards from a device within the DMZ, and wherever their OT-based server is housed, it's running from a network that has access to that. If it gets published up to the Fabric online service, that's a different story because obviously you can access that from anywhere.
So this will probably sit below the DMZ?
Yeah, most likely.
Got it.
Again, it's up to the customer how they want to do it, but I think generally yes. Yep.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think that covers Power BI dashboards and the custom connector. If you guys want to hang around, take a quick break to get set up here, but at 1 o'clock we're going to talk about OTbase Insight, which I mentioned before. That's our brand new AI intelligence visibility layer that you can interact with OTbase in a natural language format in a simple interface that allows you to query for reports that you want or device queries you may want that maybe either be difficult in OTbase or impossible because you don't have access or whatever. So we'll go over that in a couple of minutes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.